Welcome to First Page Friday. This week I have not one, not two, but three first pages to read to you. And that's because in Alan Gratz's story, Refugee, we actually have three main characters. In the novel, it is a fictionalized story. We see three young children who are fleeing their homeland for a better life. In the story, we see Joseph, who's fleeing 1930s Germany, Isabel, who's fleeing Cuba in 1994, and Mahmoud, who's fleeing Syria in 2015. In the story, we have many different countries. We also have quite a span of time from 1930 to 1994 to 2015, and yet all stories end up coming together. Joseph, Berlin, Germany, 1938. Crack. Bang! Joseph Landau shot straight up in his bed, his heart racing. That sound, it was like someone had kicked the front door in. Had he dreamed it? Joseph listened, straining his ears in the dark. He wasn't used to the sounds of this new flat, the smaller one he and his family had been forced to move into. He couldn't afford their old place, not since the Nazis told Joseph's father he wasn't allowed to practice law anymore because he was Jewish. Across the room, Joseph's little sister Ruth was still asleep. Joseph tried to relax. Maybe he'd just been having a nightmare. Something in the darkness outside his room moved with a grunt and a scuffle. Someone was in the house. Joseph scrambled back in his bed, his eyes wide. There was a shattering sound in the next room. Chris! Ruth woke up and screamed in sheer blind terror. She was only 6 years old. Mama, Joseph cried. Papa, Isabel, just outside Havana, Cuba, 1994. It took only 2 tries to get the scrawny calico kitten to come out from under the pink cinder block house and eat from Isabel Fernandez's hand. The cat was hungry, just like everyone else in Cuba, and its belly quickly won over its fear. The cat was so tiny it could only nibble at the beans. Its tummy purred like an outboard motor, and it butted its head against Isabel's hand between the bites. "You're not much to look at, are you, kitty?" Isabel said. Its fur was scraggly and dull, and Isabel could feel the cat's bones through the skin. The kitten wasn't too different from her, Isabel realized, thin, hungry, and in need of a bath. Isabel was 11 years old and all lanky arms and legs. Her brown face was splotchy with freckles, and her thick black hair was cut short for summer and pulled back behind her ears. She was barefoot, like always, and wore a tank top and shorts. The kitten gobbled up the last of the beans and mewed pitifully. Isabel wished she had something else to give it. But this food was already more than she could spare. Her lunch hadn't been much bigger than the cat's. Mahmoud, Aleppo, Syria, 2015. Mahmoud Bashara was invisible, and that's exactly how he wanted it. Being invisible was how he survived. He wasn't literally invisible. If you really looked at Mahmoud, got a glimpse under the hoodie he kept pulled down over his face, you would see a 12-year-old boy with long, strong nose, thick black eyebrows, and short, cropped black hair. He was stocky, his shoulders wide and muscular despite the food shortages. But Mahmoud did everything he could to hide his size and his face to stay under the radar. Random death from a fighter jet's missile or soldier's rocket launcher might come at any moment when you least expected it. To walk around getting noticed by the Syrian army or the rebels fighting them was just inviting trouble. Mahmoud sat in the middle row of desks in his classroom where the teacher wouldn't call on him. The desks were wide enough for 3 students at each, and Mahmoud sat between two other boys named Ahmed and Nidal. Ahmed and Nidal weren't his friends. Mahmoud didn't have any friends.